welcome to another video. And today I am going back to the roots and I'm going to look at the Time magazine one more time. So if you want to join me, sit down or lie down, relax, and let's take a look at the Time magazine together. First things first, let's begin with the advertisement. And on this page I have Epclusa, I guess that's how you pronounce it. And it's a prescription medicine that is used to treat people with hepatitis C. A little bit of a description, side effects, information about the medication. And on this page here we have the contents of what's in this magazine. From the editor here, this is Edward Felsenthal, and he's the editor-in-chief for the Time magazine. And as always, he gives a little bit of an introduction to the issue. On the other side here we have another ad for traveling, and this is traveling to Cuba. Here it says it's the most comprehensive Cuba experience. Very interesting. And it looks like it's just a cruise. 11-night cruise from Fort Lauderdale. Certainly something to consider. Then on this page we have their famous facts introduced in a short manner so that we don't have to read the full article to get the gist. 30 years is a long time, ain't it? Spike Lee, director, reacting to his first Academy Award nomination for directing for Black Klansman. I haven't seen it yet. If any of you have seen this, maybe you can provide your feedback whether it's worth watching or not. I've never seen jumps in some of the key indicators like this. And this is Anthony Lacerowitz, director of the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication, after a survey showed a significant spike in the percentage of Americans worried about climate change. Well, no kidding. $25,000 money raised last year to fund the search for a mate for a rare Bolivian frog nicknamed Romeo. Anna Juliet was found, and scientists hoping to help save the species now have planned a date for them on Valentine's Day. Well, that is is just interesting. I guess what else can we do to save the species, right? Just find them a date. Actually, I watched a YouTube, not a documentary, it was kind of like a short 10-minute story. Apparently, there was a woman in Japan who decided to marry herself. It wasn't that she actually got married to herself, but she basically planned this whole wedding and bridal photo shoot, because she couldn't wait for a partner, so she decided to just do it herself because that was her dream. And apparently there's been more of a trend, not a trend I guess, but more, I guess, a couple of instances, but it seems like a whole industry is developing on this concept. Isn't it interesting? Okay, I kind of divert from the topic. Bad Week, Ariana Grande. Several rappers say her new single 7 Rings is overly similar to their work. Good week, Grande to go. Starbucks, with the help of Uber Eats, plans to expand delivery service for mobile users. Well, that's kind of cool. I like that idea. Okay, you get a lot of support with a baby as a mother, particularly in the early days, but after the age of 1, it falls away. And that was Kate Middleton, Duchess of Cambridge, on the importance of a new UK hotline offering advice for parents and caregivers. I really don't have an opinion on this one. I do not have children. So, yeah. Next one. I am a criminal lawyer. I am not an ethicist. And that was Rudy Giuliani, legal advisor to Trump, to New York, on whether it would be problematic if Trump had been involved in discussions of a Moscow real estate project during this campaign without the knowledge of American people. Okay. No comment on that either. It's time for leaders on both sides to put politics aside, come together and end this shutdown. And that was George Bush. Yeah, I agree with that. 10% of Transportation Security Administration screeners absent from work on January 20th, an agency record on day 30 of the partial government shutdown. I have not personally experienced that, but I know a lot of people who have, and I hope with government reopening they will get what they deserve as far as compensation. And it is certainly hard time for regular workers who are affected by it. Very stressful, but hopefully things will resolve relatively quickly for you. What comes after the Women's March? This is Freedom Plaza in Washington, D.C., prep for the January 19th Women's March. I haven't really followed that, to be honest with you. But I followed this. On the night of January 20th, stargazers witness a lunar eclipse coinciding with a supermoon. A full moon that appears when the moon's orbit brings it closer to Earth, making it seem larger. And when the moon passed into the Earth's shadow, it glowed red like that. It was kind of cool. An uprising in Sudan threatens to dismantle 3 decades of authoritarian rule. Let's look at news ticker. Protests met with violence in Zimbabwe. 12 people were killed and hundreds injured in the wake of protests that broke out after a fuel price increase was announced. Supreme Court to hear gun case. So, this U.S. Supreme Court agreed on January 22nd, apparently, to hear its first Second Amendment case in 9 years. And that is a move that may signal willingness by the now majority conservative court to weigh in on gun control issues. Gene editing scientists reprimanded. I've heard about that. It was a Chinese scientist who claimed he created the world's first genetically edited babies. So he apparently back in November also, he said that he altered the genes of twin girls' embryos to make them resistant to HIV. And it's such a controversial subject, but I think it's unavoidable, and it's going to continue as time goes by. Let's see, what else? Taliban resumes talks after killings. Alright, Google find under new EU data law. And then question remained on BuzzFeed Trump report. Special counsel Mueller's office denied unnamed aspects of a BuzzFeed news story, alleging that President Trump instructed his now former lawyer Cohen to lie to Congress. And BuzzFeed stood by the January 17th story, which had sparked talk of impeachment among some members of Congress. Okay. Not so ancient artifacts. Scottish archaeologists apparently ended research into a stone circle thought to be centuries old after it emerged that a farmer built in the 1990s. Here the more artificial antiquities. Fake fossils, on the wraps. Counterfeit a crown. In 1896, the Louvre said it had bought a golden tiara of the ancient, some kind of a king, and then years later, experts were questioning and the authenticity, and they found out that the crown was a fake made by an Odessa goldsmith. Right. And there's some milestones over here on this page. Announced that California Senator Kamala Harris is running for president. Egyptian TV presenter was sentenced to 1 year of hard labor by the Egyptian government for interviewing an anonymous gay man last year. Well, that's ridiculous if you ask me. So good to live in somewhat of a free country. A record 33,341 murder probes opened by Mexican investigators in 2018, up from the previous record of 25,036 in 2017. And then the Netflix movie Roma was nominated for 10 Oscars, including Best Picture. And that is of Netflix's first nomination in the top category. Alright. And unfortunately, Mary Oliver died. And she was a Pulitzer Prize winner. And she received the National Book Award for Poetry in 1992. And, it's a shame. Let's see. There's a lot of text. Boxed in. Paul Whelan, the former U.S. Marine, was accused by Russia of being a spy. And here he speaks to his lawyers from the defendant's cage during a pre-trial hearing in Moscow on January 22nd. Government by too few. The longest government shutdown in the U.S. history has directed America's attention to the plight of its federal employees. But there's something worse and more fundamental happening. Over decades, this workforce has become overburdened, putting the country at greater risk than most of its citizens realize. Short reads. What to know when you don't know. Re-electing a Republican and strength in numbers. These are basically highlights from the stories. Let's look at this one. After the New York Times reported that Trump was considering pulling the U.S. out of NATO, James Stavridis, who served as Supreme Allied Commander at the Alliance, referenced the Winston Churchill. The only thing worse than fighting with allies is fighting without them. Right. Now, why my medical crisis wasn't taken seriously? The healthcare machine could not imagine me as competent, and so it neglected me until I was incompetent. Interesting. I'm looking forward to learn a little bit more about what this article says. Let's kind of briefly screen it. Was maybe 5 years old, wanted to click, blah, blah, blah. So something about being pregnant. This lady, she was 4 months along, very uncomfortable, and then she was at work, and then she started bleeding. She waited until she filed her copy by deadline before calling her husband to pick her up. So I guess she waited until the end of the day or something like that. And then she went to the OB office, and she sat there in the waiting room for 30 minutes. She called ahead and reported her condition, and then she bled through a chair in the waiting room and asked her husband to ask the receptionist to be moved in a more private area. Wow, that's crazy. So that she could bleed more. Poor woman. The nurse kind of was alarmed. No kidding about that. And they let her in. Doctor arrived, and he explained that this woman was probably just too fat, and that spotting was normal. I'm sorry, that is not spotting if you bleed through a chair. And then she was sent home, and this kind of continued. She called the nurse, and by the end of the 3rd day, her butt was hurting apparently. She hasn't slept. She went to the hospital, and they were asking her if she ate something bad or something like that. And apparently when they did an ultrasound, the image showed that she was pregnant with 3 babies. Only the problem was that she was pregnant with 1. And the other 2 were tumors that were larger than a baby. That's crazy. They scolded her that she should have said something before. Oh, poor woman. So then several days later, she had labor pains, and no one diagnosed, so she couldn't really hold her off her labor anymore. And they gave her pain medication. I wonder if she didn't receive any pain medicine before that. In any case, the baby was born deceased, unfortunately. That's sad. But the thing was that she was a minority woman. She was an African American woman, and the CDC says that black women are more than 200% more likely to die from pregnancy or childbirth-related causes than white women. I wonder why. Is it because when there is a problem, they're not taken as seriously? That is awful. Anyway, that's I'm glad she came forward to tell her story, even though it's a sad one. There's a little bit of about migrants. And so I guess these are stories, dividing lines, the human face of global migration. There's nobody that can protect us there. We have seen in the other cases they kill the people and kill their children. Wow, this is ending up to be a pretty depressing ASMR video. Forgive me for that. Maybe next time I'll settle for a Glamour magazine or something like that. Unfortunately, I don't have a subscription to those. But next time I'll select something more fun. In the meantime, looks like this is quite a large article about migrants. Iman al-Badawi, 34, an English teacher, fled Aleppo in 2015 after some of her students began disappearing and others showed up with injuries from bombings. She now lives with her 3 children in Enrosht. I don't know how to pronounce it. Sometimes you go 1 day, 2 days without eating. I can take it, but the children can't. And this is family again. Sami Baladi, 43, and his wife, so this guy, fled the civil war in Syria with their children. The family now runs a Syrian restaurant in Germany. So I guess these immigrants actually go somewhere else, not just to the US. Obviously, I wasn't sure whether they were reporting simply US statistics or European also. Women make up only 12% of the AI research world. Huh. Interesting. The rise of drug-resistant bacteria is jeopardizing decades of progress. That is true. We should be scared of that. When girls are educated, they are empowered. The impacts of global temperature rise have never been as clear. Yeah, I agree with that. I saw something in the news about the glaciers in Antarctica melting much faster than they have been even projected. Put a price on pollution for cleaner growth. These are some interesting ideas. Providing solutions for a changing world. Looks like it's some kind of advertisement. Yep, skipping that. The truth about robots. There will still be jobs in the age of AI. The key then must be retraining the workforce. That's true. There's an interview here with Klaus Schwab, if you're interested. Oceans adrift. It ought to be hard for a species that occupies roughly 10% of the Earth's island to mess up 70% of the planet's entire surface. Yet humans are well on the way to wrecking the oceans. Oh gosh, that's awful. And then there's not only pollution, but also the waste. Look at this, wasting away ocean pollution. Yeah, it's all the plastic that we produce and not recycle, unfortunately. I guess there are many factors in that, not just plastic. Trash afloat. Alright. The male pill. The pill may not be just for women soon. The U.S. National Institutes of Health is set to test a male hormone halting gel that's rubbed onto the back and shoulders. Endangered coffee. Apparently, rising temperatures bring drought and disease and killing pollinating insects. And the forecast to make nearly half the globe's land used to grow high-quality coffee unproductive by 2050. That's scary. Especially me being addicted to coffee. Coffee's really the first thing I go to when I wake up in the morning. In fact, it makes me kind of happy even to wake up when there is a freshly brewed cappuccino. So delicious. The smell of brewing coffee in the morning is just so fantastic. You add half and half steamed into your cup, and the combination is just delicious. Green funerals. By one estimate, a traditional 10-acre cemetery contains enough buried wood to build 40 homes and enough embalming fluid to fill a swimming pool. That's nasty. Eco-friendly conservation bureaus on the rise in developed countries feature biodegradable coffins and formaldehyde-free embalming. That's a great idea. You know, a little while ago I saw this article about humans being buried in their fetal position like that and making a beginning of an end. So they plant a tree on top of the human body. But there's a controversy regarding the water supply. What if this body is next to water? But it's an interesting concept, wouldn't you agree? And then there's cure for baldness. Japanese researchers in 2016 said they had developed a way to use stem cells to regenerate hair follicles, with human clinical trials possible in 2019. Oh, I bet that's great news for so many men and women, well, mostly men, who suffer from baldness. Yeah. Eat the beetle. Studies say the market for edible bugs will be worth up to 1.2 billion by 2023. Around 2 billion people already eat crickets, mealworms, and other insects. Okay then. Making a change. Sustainable architect, musicians. So these are young people who are doing something good for the society. Hmm. 2030 population 8.6 billion, so a billion more than today. Mobility, 1 in 4 passenger miles in the US are expected to be traveled in shared self-driving vehicles. And then wealth. So the richest 1% currently own 47% of global wealth and could own 64% by 2030. Life expectancy is likely to increase in industrialized countries, with South Korean girls born in 2030 projected to have the longest life. Poverty. An estimated 500 million people will be earning less than $1.90 a day. But poverty is improving throughout the world, so while it still does exist, we certainly made progress. From 36% in 1990 to 6% in 2030 projected. That's great. And then AI is expected to add more to the global economy than the current total economic output of China and India combined. And then obesity. Oh, that's a good topic. The obesity epidemic is expecting to continue plaguing the US. By 2030, 50% of people will be obese. Wow, that's just crazy. And then military, if current trends continue, global annual defense spending will jump to more than 50%. Wow, that's the art of dying. Chipotle's second act. The former CEO of Taco Bell is helping revive a chain known for fresh burritos and food safety lapses. That's the guy. Whole article is about Chipotle, I guess. And here we have your feminist finales. 2 ace journalists larger than life. Movies, documentaries, history through her lens, the age of light. Grieving between the lines, all the lives we ever lived. What a cute dog. Save them all. Best Friends Animal Society. They do a lot of good stuff. Well, last one is David Truer. Right on Elizabeth Warren, The Problem with Tragedy, and his new book, The Heartbeat of Wounded Knee. And finally, the Geico advertisement. and the back. Well, that was a quite interesting magazine issue. So I hope you enjoyed it somewhat, and that was a little bit relaxing. Take care of yourself, and on to a new week. Take care.